Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode in the tile scrolling game series. For the 10th episode, we will be adding the spawn platform and the number counter. Make sure you hit that like button and consider subscribing. But anyway, let's get right into this video. Okay, so I have two new sprites. One is called Money and one is called Shopkeeper. The Shopkeeper we may or may not get to this episode, but I have it in the project just in case we do. Okay, so in the Money sprite, it's just a number counter with a bunch of numbers. So I have 1 all the way through 9 and then 0 with numbers, and these are the same numbers that are in the inventory. Then I have 11, which is a nice $sign. Then in the Shopkeeper I have idle 0, idle 1, and idle 2, and these are just the actual costumes for the guy shopkeeper. Wow. Then I have one that is like him waving up or something, and that's really weird looking. I never even noticed that there's like a 2-pixel gap there. Okay, that's better. But he's just waving up with like an exclamation point. Then I have background. So these are just like the shadows behind all the shop stuff. Then I have speech bubble, which just is the welcome and stuff. Then I have all of the different shop icons, and these just match the ID of the item. So for instance, the torch is called 6, and if you go into the backdrops, the ID of the torch is 6, as you can see here. So that's how you can make the graphics for the different items. Okay, so let's go ahead and make it to where when you generate the world, there'll be like a little platform thingy for the player to stand on. Go ahead and make a custom block called create spawn platform like this, and click on run screen without refresh and then okay. Then we want to go ahead and create the spawn platform down here, and we want to generate the trees inside of this create spawn platform. That way it kind of orders it down. So it'll make the spawn platform, generate the trees, generate the ores, and then play the game. Okay, so now inside of the create spawn platform, we need to first teleport the player down to the bottom. So add a new broadcast called find spawn point like this, and then do and wait. Then in the player, do a when I receive find spawn point, make a custom block called find spawn point like this, and click on run screen without refresh and then okay. Now you want to run that block right here. Let's first start by centering the player on the middle tile of the world. So set X to X divided by tile move step of tile manager. Then you want to take that times the tile move step of tile manager like this. Now you want to go ahead and round down, so take the floor of all of this like so. Then you want to add on to all of this the tile move step of tile manager times 0.5, so it's half of the tile move step. So put that in there and then add that like this, and set the X to all of that. Now you're going to repeat the height of the world, so just do a repeat 10 times and change this to the world height wherever that is. World height like this. We are going to make the player move down, so change the Y, this one right here, by 1 tile down. So just take 0 minus the tile move step. Then you want to go ahead and check for collision in the center of the player, so do 0 0. Then you want to check if we are colliding, so just do if gliding is greater than 0. You could also do equal to 1, whatever. And you also want to check if the tile has collision and the current tile we are on, so that would be the item 1 of the tile grid like this. And instead of the item 1, we want to do player tile index of tile grid. Then we want to find the ID of that tile, so in the ID grabber of the tile meta. Then you want to add 2 to that to get the collision, because if I remember right, 1 2, yep, that's collision. So we want to go ahead and add 2 to that to shift it. Then we want to actually find that in the tile meta, so do the item 1 of tile meta like this and put that in there. So this will check if the current tile the player is on has collision. So if has collision is true. Then we want to go ahead and change the Y by the tile move step of tile manager times the costume height. So this will make it move up to where its feet are on the ground. Then we want to go ahead and set the scroll X and scroll Y to the position of the player. Set scroll X to X and do the same for Y, except change it all to Y. So scroll Y and then the Y. Now we want to go ahead and exit out of this loop. So just do stop this script. Okay, so if we go ahead and test this out, you should see that the player now spawns at the bottom of the world, or not bottom, on the ground instead of up in the air. Okay, that didn't work. We are in a cave. That's interesting. interesting. Okay, I actually did the wrong thing here. You want to do plus costume height, not times. So now maybe it'll work. So if we start it, we should spawn on the ground instead of falling down. So you can see, okay, it doesn't work. Okay, so I figured it out. This part right here, you can actually just take that out because we're already checking if we're colliding. And now you can see that once we spawn in, the player can actually spawn, and it can even spawn under trees. So you can see here, if I keep starting over and over, we don't fall down on the world. So this is actually working correctly. Like right here, we spawn there. Okay, so now that we have this, we can actually create a spawn platform. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the tile manager and add a new broadcast called get current player tile pause, like this. So this will just get the current position of the player. So in the player, we can just do when I receive get current tile pause, all that stuff. We run the get current tile X and Y, so that way we get set all the data. Okay, now in the tile manager, we've figured out the position and we've positioned the player. So now in the tile manager, we've positioned the player and then figured out that position. So now that we have that, we can actually generate the platform. So set the tile index, which is just like a I variable, to 1, and then make a custom block called generate line, like this, platform. And if you want to shorten it up even more, you can just do gen like that. Now you want to add a colon, tile ID with a colon, an input ID, and then a label player tile ID with a colon, then player tile ID. Now run screen without refresh and click OK. So now we want to go ahead and for now generate that and do 13, which is the ID of the paved dirt or whatever you want to call it, as you can see. So we can generate that, and the player tile ID will be the backdrop of stage, and change this to player tile index of player. Okay, now in here we need to actually replace the stuff in the tile grid. So replace item 1 in tile grid with the ID. Now we don't want the 1 because that'll be at like the bottom left of the world. So let's take the player tile ID minus the tile index. So each time this tile index increases, it'll go down 1 from the player. Okay, so now we duplicate this and then do minus all that and add on to the tile index like this, the world height. So this will be 1 to the right. Now we want to go ahead and duplicate this and take the world height times 2, which will make it go 2 to the right. Then we can duplicate this one, and instead of plus, we can do minus, which will make it go 1 to the left. Duplicate that again and take the world height times 2 in here, and that'll make it go 2 to the left. Okay, so if we've done everything correctly, it should generate a platform of the paved earth underneath the player. That didn't really work. Well, that's interesting. Oh, that's because I did this wrong. On the bottom 2, we need to actually add on like that. It should create a line of the paved dirt. Okay, so that worked awesome. Look at that. It generated a line of dirt. And you can see we can actually change this to anything we like. If I do 2, say, I can put 2 in here, and now it'll generate a line of bedrock underneath the player when we spawn in. So we spawn in and yep, there's the bedrock. Awesome. Okay, so now that we know this is working, let's change that back to 13 and make it to where it clears out a little area. So it'll remove blocks and replace it with air. So duplicate that and repeat 6 times. Do 1, which is air, and then before that, change the tile index by -1. Then at the very end, set the tile index to 2, and then replace it with 4 so it fills in some dirt underneath. Okay, so if we've done everything correctly now, hopefully it should make a platform that clears out the area around it. So you can see that, yep, it clears out an area, makes them a little dirt platform, and puts the player on it. But it is inside of the player, so that's obviously not correct. Okay, and I think the reason for this is that we are spawning on grass. So to avoid this, we actually need that thing in the tile meta that says if the tile is suitable or not. So in the tile meta, go ahead and right click and edit and add a new input called is spawnable with a colon and then an input spawnable. Then you want to make sure you add the tile data in here, the is spawnable all the way over here. Okay, so the spawnable like this. Okay, so the first one we want to do false because air doesn't have them. Bedrock is spawnable, stone is spawnable, dirt is spawnable, grass is spawnable, long grass is not, flower is not, wood is, leaves are not, leaf logs are not, clay is, torches are not, bedrock dirt is, obviously that's what you actually spawn on, ladders are not, or actually no, it doesn't really matter, you'd never spawn on one, tin ore is, coal ore, and all of these are. Okay, so now we should have the is spawnable added to the tile meta. So now we just need to figure out how to get that. So we need to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to it. Okay, so now we know how to get that. So in the tile manager, we need that block that we threw away. So we're going to have to make it all over again. So in the player, we're going to need to go around and find where we set the spawn position and all that. Then we want to do an and make that block again, except add 8 instead of 2. Item 1 of the tile grid, and instead of the item 1, we want to do the player tile ID. Then we want to find the ID of that, so do the item number in the ID grabber and put that in there like this. Then we want to add the 8 to that and put that in the item 1 of tile meta. Then to actually check if it's spawnable, do equals true and put that in there. So now it'll go down until it finds a block that has the spawnable equals to true. Okay, this is not good at all. You can see that I can spawn underneath trees and all that stuff, which is good. It's not colliding with that. So the actual positioning of the player is being set correctly, as you can see here. It's just the platform that's not working right. In the reset of the player, let's go ahead and take out the minus costume height right there. And this should take out the offset of the player. But I think maybe this has something to do with it. So you can see now, oh my gosh, yes, okay, it's actually working now. So it actually had to do with the offset of the player and all that. Now it will be flush in the ground. Okay, and then something I noticed here is that the lighting isn't updating. So let's go ahead and add a broadcast and wait here, refresh tiles at the very end, actually above the generate trees. And now it should maybe get rid of that weird bug. Yep, okay, so now these shadows are working correctly, and we have a cool platform that is also not mineable, which is very good. So now let's make it to where the player spawns to the left of the platform. So add a broadcast at the very bottom here. So broadcast, and just name this like final positioning of player. I don't know, that's a weird name, but whatever. So we'll add that right at the bottom here, so that way it will reposition the player. So in the player, add a final positioning of player, scroll down to the very bottom here, and then we want to change the X by 0 minus the tile move step of tile manager times 2. So this will make it move -2 tiles, which will make it move to the left. Now if we put that in there and start the game, we should spawn at the very left of the platform like shown here. So moment of truth. Yes, look at that, we spawn at the left of the platform. Okay, cool, so now we have this working correctly. Okay, so let's make the money counter work real quick. Okay, so this is just the number counter that I've used in my other tutorials, and I even have a tutorial on it. We want to add a when receive hide loading screen, hide, so it gets rid of the original sprite. Then we want to make a for the sprite only variable called update counter. This will tell the counter when to update. So we want to just set that to the money, which is a new variable for all sprites, +1, which will force it to update in the very beginning. Now we want to check if the update counter is not equal to the money, which means that we should update. So if not update counter is equal to the money, then we want to go ahead and add a broadcast clear money counter clones like this. So it removes all of the clones, and then when I receive the clear money counter clones, delete this clone so it actually does it. Then we want to make sure we set the update counter to money, and now we can print out the money in the top left of the screen. Let's go ahead and do that. Make a custom block called text, then a colon, the actual text, a label size with a colon, then an input size like this, a input X or a label X, and then input X, a label Y, an input Y, a label spacing with a colon, and an input spacing like this, and click run screen without refresh, and then OK. So now you can go ahead and put that in here, and for the text we want to go ahead and do money. The size will be 100, the X will be 225, the Y will be 158, and the spacing will be 0.2. Okay, so now we need to actually make the text. So first, let's start by positioning it. So go to the X and Y. Then we need a variable called I. This will be the iterator variable, and set that I to the length of text. Now, the reason we're doing it a little bit differently is because it's not left to right aligned. It's actually right to left aligned. So that means it'll print from the right and then to the left. So it takes a little bit of a different approach. Then we want to set the size to the size and repeat the length of text, switch costume to the letter 1 of Apple, and change this to letter I of text, which will print out the character. Create a new clone. Then after that, we want to move the X position a little bit to the left. So do 0 minus spacing times size, which will get us the correct spacing depending on the size. Then change the I by -1 so it iterates backwards, which will make it print right to left. Then in the clone, to make sure it actually shows up, we want to do a show and then a clear graphic effects, go to front, and then a set size to a new variable called size, which will keep track of its original size. So go ahead and set the underscore size here to the size input. Then we want to set size to its target size down here, and we want to add 50 to that. That way it starts off a little bit bigger. Then we want to forever go to front, so that way it's always in front of everything. Change the size by size variable minus its actual size, which is this purple one. Then divide that by 2 or take it times 0.5 and put that in there, which will make it smoothly grow back down. Okay, so in the beginning, you can now hopefully see some numbers in the top right. So right now it should say 0. Yep, it says 0. Then if we go ahead and change the money, which is the variable it's printing out, by 1, yes, look at that, it increases and it also spaces itself correctly. Now let's make it have the little money symbol so it looks a little more fancy. So all you need to do is do join $sign here. That's not a $sign. So now you can see if we update this counter by changing the money by 1, yep, look at that, it has a little $sign there now. Cool. And the way you get that is by putting the same costume name here as your symbol. So say your symbol was named, I don't know, T, and then you did join T with money, you can see that it works too. Okay, so this is working good now. Thank you all so much for watching the 10th episode in the tile game series. If you did enjoy this video, then make sure you hit that like button and consider subscribing. But anyway, this has been Owen, and I am out.